a community health activist. I am also a contact tracer for COVID. I am a health activist, certified life coach, and health coach. So tonight, we're talking about what is the human cost of a pandemic. Do you remember where you were in the world when COVID, we first heard about it in 2020? Do you remember where you were? Well, I'm going to tell you where I was coming from. I had just left Hawaii. I was on the island of Kauai when got news about COVID, the coronavirus. And I was there for about, I'm going to say, 8 to 10 days, and I returned home. And it was like at that point, everything hit the fan. I mean, everything hit the fan. I mean, time I got back, it seems like time I got home from the airport, trying to get my bearings straight, in terms of what was going to happen next. I remember the very next day, the media started talking about in Illinois how things were going to be shutting down, and people were afraid, just like they are now. But now we know more about it than what we did then. So for me, my situation was at the time I was working as a health coach, and the company that I was working for, they wanted to have all the health coaches in the office. Hey, Joanne, I see you. How are you? I'm so glad that you're here with me tonight. So the company that I was working for, they wanted all the health coaches to still work out of the office. And I remember having a conversation with them about, by being COVID, I was not comfortable coming into the office anymore to work. And the reason for that is because we had staff in and out of our office all over the Chicagoland area. And I just didn't, feel safe and comfortable because they were not even wearing any mask or anything of that nature. And they said, no, you're not going to be able to work from home. You must come into the office. And when I think about the human cost of the pandemic, the first thing that comes to my mind is we have to prioritize our own health. We have to prioritize what truly matters. And what truly matters is your livelihood. What truly matters is your health, um, having a better life. What would be the point of coming into the office if I get sick and then I bring COVID back home to my home? The job that I was doing at the time, it's not something that required me to be in the office. We could do that from home. And so I had a conversation with the director of the company and said, no, I'm going to be working from home. And they said, this is something, Nisi, that we will have to discuss and we will have to think about. And I said, no, it's nothing we need to discuss. It's nothing I need to think about because I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be working from home. And if I cannot work from home, then I will just quit right now. It's as simple as that. And so I told them, okay, this is going to be my last day. The very next day, they come calling me, telling me, okay, now you can work from home. Now you can work from home. And it really, to be honest, it really, really annoyed me because what it told me about this particular place was that they did not value my life. They didn't value the life of the other coaches because, see, the nature of our work was via the internet. So if I was in the office and if I was at home, it would be the same setup: computer, virtual calls for coaching, or via phone. So that's why I was saying it really was no point in me having to be in the office. I could do this via phone. And I just found from my experience that a lot of companies were just not flexible wanting to do that. So when we think about the human cost of the pandemic, what I think about are those people who work on the front lines who may not have the option, or working from home. How do you handle that? When, let's say, you're a single mom and you have young children at home. You may not be able to stay home like I did because you got mouths to feed, right? I don't have any young babies. I don't have any children. So if you're a single mom, you definitely need support because you got to put food on the table for your family. You've got to survive. And that's really troubling for me with this pandemic because I feel that in this country, the US, we can give away millions and billions of dollars to people who already have money. But when it came down to the pandemic, this is the time that what should have been happening was money should have been spent to help people stay at home, to survive, to take care of themselves, take care of their families. Because if you're on the front line, let's say that you're someone who works in the restaurant industry, let's say you're someone that works as an aide, housekeeper, or whatever your job may be, and you go out there and you do your job. Let's say you're someone who works for a home health care agency and you're providing care to those who are sick and shut in, and you're going out there and you're doing your job, but then you're bringing COVID back home to your household. That's one of the human costs of the pandemic in terms of what it's costing us, what it's costing you. It's costing you also your, when you think about your mind, it's costing you a lot of stress. It's costing you a lot of worry. It's costing you a lot of upset. It's also affecting your mental health, body, mind, spirit, soul, as well as occupational health. Because as I mentioned, a lot of people do not have jobs where they can work from home. Oh, that is great, Joanne. You heard that Canada gave its citizens money monthly to help them. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we should have been doing here in this country, giving people money to be at home, surviving, taking care of their families. Think about that. If Canada can do that, we can do it too. That would have been, Joanne, that would have been one way that we could have helped flatten the curve a lot sooner. And okay, not just stimulus checks I see once in a while. Absolutely. If more people would have been able to be at home, that would have helped us flatten the curve instead of everybody being out trying to survive, everybody being out trying to work. And I remember in the beginning going into a grocery store, you couldn't find any toilet paper, you couldn't find any paper towel, you couldn't find any disinfectant. I mean, it was just like a mass exodus where I would see people with shopping carts full of toilet tissue, paper towel, all kinds of stuff. And it was hard to buy anything. I felt for those people who may not have even had the money to buy those things. And I'll never forget one day I went out looking to buy some masks. And when I went out to buy masks, the stores were all out. And I only had a few left. And I was waiting for Amazon to ship some. And someone told me to go to one of the local hardware stores because they had some masks. But here's the kicker: the masks that they would normally sell, probably for about, I think at the time, around $15 or $17, they were charging $50 for a small box of masks. I just thought that was highway robbery. I mean, $50, you're talking about price gouging. That's another cost of the pandemic. It created the haves and the have-nots. I mean, we are already divided as it is, but haves and the have-nots, because now we've got another situation where people who may not be at the top are locked out, where they can't buy anything from the store. And then the other thing that really bothered me about all of this was going into stores where people who would refuse to wear masks. Now, some of you may be, yes, horrible price gougers. Absolutely. I remember going into Costco, Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, all over looking for basic essentials and could not find them. I even tried, you know how you can do your online grocery store delivery, Shift, Instacart, and all those other places? Couldn't get anything shipped because they were all out of stock. And I would go out looking for supplies. Now, I myself should not have been going out because I have a chronic illness, fibromyalgia, and I also have an autoimmune condition. And again, that's one of the hidden costs of the pandemic. When you have a chronic illness, and I'm also diabetic. So if you have a chronic illness, you're really risking your health because you're going out there to buy the essentials that your household needs that you cannot order online. So you're going out there to buy groceries. You're going out there to buy masks, paper towels, whatever you need. And so what I would do would be to, if I had to go out, to get as much as I possibly could, to stock up, not gouge, not have a whole cart full of paper towels, a whole cart full of toilet paper. No, just enough for what I felt we needed, and leave some for someone else. And that's what I would do. And then the sick and shut in at our church, what I would do for some of the seniors is I will call them up and say, hey, I'm going out, doing some shopping. What can I get you? Because I knew that they would not be able to go out. Some of them don't even drive. And not only that, even if they did drive, I would not want them going out because it's too risky. It's too dangerous for them. And what I would do is pick and shop for them, go to their home. I wouldn't go inside. I would just leave it at the front of their door so they can bring it in. So with this human cost of the pandemic, we really, even to this day, we still have to look out for one another. I was talking to one of the mothers of our church last night, and she was sharing with me how her younger sister in Mississippi had passed away. And the mother of the church that I was speaking with, she's probably about 80 some years of age. And so she was telling me that her younger sister had passed away and how she would not be able to travel to the funeral, and just how depressed she was and how sad she was. Number one, that she had lost her sister, and two, the fact that she wouldn't be able to travel to attend the funeral services for her sister. So think about that. Now, when it comes down to funerals, we all want to pay our respects, right? But now you can't really even do that because they're going to limit how many people will attend because of social distancing to keep everybody safe. And plus, she was just so sad because she has not been able to get out of her household in a long time. Really, really, really sad. So, how do you all handle that in your community? How do you handle it with your loved ones? Let me know what have been some of the challenges that you have experienced due to the costs of the pandemic. For me, with my family members, I have not physically been able to visit any of them, I would say now in over a year. And the reason for that is COVID, and two, not wanting to, be around other people because you don't know who people have been around. And the one thing about COVID is this, that we sometimes forget, is it's not just where you've been, it's also the people that you've been hanging out with and around, where they've been, and whom they have been in contact with. So that's something we have to be mindful of, especially if you have a chronic illness. We have to really be mindful of the company that we keep, and the company that we allow to even step inside our homes, come inside our household. So for me in my house, I do not allow any friends or family to come in to visit. What I do is we talk via phone, we jump on a Zoom call, we FaceTime, we'll do something like that. But as far as visiting someone, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not comfortable doing that. I miss traveling. I want to go back to Hawaii, but I'm not even going to be doing that. I'm afraid to get on a plane because when you get on the plane, you think about the number of people on the plane. People may not be cooperative. People may not be wearing their masks. So you haven't seen, Joanne, you said your dad in over a year. You finally saw each other at Christmas. That's a blessing, that you were able to see each other finally at Christmas time. Has anyone received their vaccine yet? I mean, we have three on the market now. We've got Pfizer, we got Moderna, we got J&J, Johnson and Johnson. So Johnson and Johnson, yes, we do lots of Zoom calls also. Let me just plug in my charger to get this charged. So yes, we do lots of Zoom time also. Now, both of my parents are deceased. So right now it's just me and my sisters, and I have other family members. But we do lots of Zoom calls, lots of FaceTime, as well as, texting one another. So that's very important. It's that human connection. It's the human connection that we all need. Just to think about just a hug, just being able to reach out and touch and not being able to do that anymore. I said to a friend late last night, I was in the process of saying to her, her name is Debbie, and I was in the process of saying, hey, let's go out and get a bite to eat. Because what we used to do before COVID was every month or every other month, we would have girls' night out. Well, we're not able to do that. And then I caught myself and I said, oh, wow, I forgot. We can't be hanging out like we used to now. This is the pandemic. We've got to keep one another safe. And that's vitally important. I spoke with someone the other day, and they had a situation where they hung out with some people who told them that they had been staying at home, not going anywhere, and playing it safe. That's not true. Some of them had been out partying, going to all these different parties, and did not share that with one another. And then everyone in the group developed COVID. And then one of the people in the group spread it to everyone in his household. And everybody got sick, very, very sick. And then one person had to be hospitalized. And so, again, that's the human cost of the pandemic, because I get that people do not like staying in the house all the time. I think many people are experiencing COVID fatigue. I get that. But if we jump the gun on that and just run out there and just want to go back to our old habits, we're not going to flatten the curve. And I get that there are a lot of people who do not believe that you need to wear a mask. I get that a lot of people have been saying things that masks are not going to save lives. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, and I don't argue with those type of people. What I say is govern yourself accordingly. I govern myself accordingly. I wear a mask. And see, the thing about a mask is when I wear a mask, I'm wearing a mask to not only protect myself, but to also protect those around me. I do that. A couple of months ago, I was having symptoms that I thought was COVID symptoms, and I did get tested, but I tested negative. And that's why it's important that you wear a mask to protect yourselves. Now, when I got tested, it wasn't because I was hanging around other people. All I was doing was going to the store and coming directly back home. But even though I was going to the store and coming directly back home, you're touching things, the virus can spread so easily, you just never know. Think about when you go to the grocery store. So you go to the grocery store, you got your items on the belt. The cashier rings you out. So let's say you're paying by debit card or credit card. And you know the little keypad where you have to key in what your PIN code is to check out. Think about how germy and nasty that is that you're touching. So I always make certain that I have plenty of hand sanitizer with me. And then oftentimes, Joanne, I would say to the cashier, hey, can you wipe down the keypad? Sometimes they get angry when I ask them to wipe down the keypad. Sometimes they've said, oh, is it dirty? Of course it's dirty. Everybody's coming through here is touching that keypad. So I make certain that I carry, thank you. I make certain that I carry plenty of sanitizer with me as well. So again, a human cost of the pandemic. I mean, there are so many costs. I mean, jobs is a cost. I've been looking for work, and I tell you, a lot of these companies now I'm seeing, yes, the keypad is very nasty, and they're not wiping it down. That's the thing I don't get, that you have to ask them, can you wipe down the keypad? That should be a given, that they wipe down that keypad, which they won't do. That really, really bothers me. Yes, I use my own pen too, but I'm also, Joanne, bringing gloves with me. Now I have to share with you all this story where I went. I'm not going to mention the name of the chain of the restaurant, but they're very well known. You've probably seen all their commercials on TV. So I went in there to buy a sandwich for carryout, and when I went into the restaurant, I was the only person in line. So I ordered my sandwich, and I'm watching them, got my eyes on them the entire time because they were just, running their mouths. They was not paying attention to what they were doing. They were wearing a mask, But this is where the problem came, the riff with me came. The young lady, no, the young man who took my order wasn't paying attention. So the young lady had just checked somebody out at the register and she was handling the money and she had on gloves. So picture this, someone just checked out before me, walked out the store. She was wearing gloves, the same gloves that she took the money from for the customer. She turned around, came back to where my sandwich was, did not change the gloves, proceeded to touch the sandwich with those same gloves that she took the money from the customer, put the money in the register. You see where I'm going with that? Didn't change anything. All this cross contamination. Then she took her hand and she did this, wiping the mask on her face as if her face was itching. And then she comes back and she touches my sub sandwich. And so I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, I know that's not for me. That must be for her. And so she says, well, what toppings do you want with that? As if I want COVID toppings on that from everything that they've touched. And I said, no, that's not for me. I says, I've watched you with the customer before me. You took their money, you put it in the cash register, you proceed to touch your face, you're rubbing your mask, you have the same gloves on, you're touching this sandwich over here that you think that you're preparing for me. No, I'm not eating that. I says, and that's disgusting. I said, all this cross contamination from the money, because let's face it, money is germy, right? Money is very germy. And the person who had the money, I don't know their status, if they had COVID or whatever. They handed her the money with the gloves on. She didn't take the gloves off. She used those same gloves to finish making my sandwich. Yeah, you're right, COVID toppings. And they were so angry with me when I said, no, that's not for me. I'm not going to eat that. And I says, by the way, that's not how you handle that. That's not cleanliness. And they just could not figure out why I was upset by this. So think about that. The next time you go out to a fast food place for a carry-out sandwich, I don't care who it is or where you go, just watch them behind that counter. Pay attention to how they prepare your food. Pay close attention to, are they using the same gloves? Are they changing gloves? Okay. Pay attention to, are they touching your face or other areas of their body? You know, pay attention to all of that because it's going to tell you a lot about what's going on in that restaurant. Some people may be thinking, oh, Nisi, you're being paranoid. No, I'm not being paranoid. And I'm going to tell you why I pay attention to all that. I pay attention to all that because several years ago, I caught food poisoning from a restaurant where the food that they were preparing, I got very, very ill, very, very ill, where I was sick for at least a year after that incident of food poisoning. So ever since then, I pay extra, extra close attention to how you are handling my meals. You have to. So I want you all to start thinking about that. Pay very, very, very close attention. And you know what? It's okay to walk out that restaurant and just tell them, no, I'm not eating that today. Yes, you're right. Restaurants are even scarier because you cannot see what's going on in the kitchen. No, you may not can see what's going on in the kitchen. You can look as far, but definitely pay attention to those people at the register, how they are handling your food. And a lot of it, I don't feel is intentional. Some of it, is a matter of people being uneducated about COVID, uneducated about cross contamination, uneducated about how to properly prepare your meals without touching everything. Yeah, I cook every day. It's just that this one day I had Joanne left the doctor's office, and to balance my blood sugar, I had to eat something really, really quick. But normally I cook every day at home except for that particular day. And I said, that's it. That's done it for me. I'm not gonna do that. But what I thought was really, really nice is there's this restaurant in town called Bobo's, and they're in Vernon Hills, Illinois. And the owners, they're so nice and sweet that when you go in there, let's say you pay, with your credit card and you give them your card, and they've touched your card and they've scanned it, when they give it back to you, they've wiped it down with like a disinfectant and handed it back to you. I mean, they're really careful about germs and wiping down everything, because not only do they want to keep the customer safe, they want to keep themselves safe and their employees safe. I have a lot of respect for establishments that I've seen how they truly care about their staff. And that was another human cost of the pandemic, where remember those businesses who received the PPP money and they were supposed to still keep their workers employed and to pay payroll? Many of these companies didn't even take care of their employees. They took the money and ran and laid workers off. I think that was just shameful. You know, you're getting money to bail out your business and you're supposed to still keep these people employed, but yet you're laying them off. That's wrong. And when I find out that that happens, I don't want to support those businesses. That's another cost of the pandemic. So, those of you here with me tonight, tell me, what are some of the costs of the pandemic that you all have experienced? Share with me what that is. Another cost of the pandemic is people who are refusing to get a vaccine. I've had my first um, dose of the vaccine, and I had the Pfizer vaccine. So I've already had dose number one, but I will not be getting dose number two. And it's not because I don't want it, I would love to, but I have a lot of allergies. And unfortunately, when I had dose number one, I had an anaphylactic reaction that's preventing me from getting dose number two. But I'm just so thankful that I was able to get at least one of the doses that has given me some immunity. So that's important. And another cost of the pandemic is many people are signed up to get the vaccine, but they're not able to get one because there's not enough to go around. So the one thing I'm happy about with the Biden administration is that they're opening up more pop-up tents in areas where people can go to get the vaccine. I think right now the reason why many people have not been able to receive one is because the demand is far greater, than the supply. Yes, and you're right. Many people have become very mean, unfortunately. Absolutely. Very, very, very mean. And I would say, Joanne, not just mean, but downright hateful. Very, very hateful. And that's really, really sad, because one thing about COVID that people fail to realize is that it is the great equalizer, in that, guess what, folks? It does not care about how much money you have in your bank account. It doesn't care about your zip code. Okay. It don't care about who you are. It don't care about your status. It is an equal opportunist. Hey, COVID, Corona, whatever you want to call her, him, or whatever, it don't care who you are. It will go after anyone. If you don't properly social distance, wash your hands frequently, wear that mask, separate, it's going to come knocking at your door. And that's another thing for people who do get COVID. A lot of people are walking around, know that they have it. And guess what they're doing? They're still going to work. They're not telling people their status. And I get people not wanting to share with other people their status of COVID, because there's also discrimination too with COVID. I know some people who have been really, really shamed, and so they don't want to share with people. And so that's a big problem. So let's say you're someone who was diagnosed with COVID. All right. But now you are beyond that, right? You're no longer a positive. You're now negative. But it's a stigma against you sometimes, that people want to hold it against you. But what I'm talking about are those individuals out there who know they have it, but won't sit themselves down and quarantine and isolate themselves. They still go out there hanging out. They still going out there partying and doing whatever. That I have an issue with, because if you're someone out there and you know that you're having COVID symptoms, so let's talk about what some of the COVID symptoms are. Let's talk about some of the basic symptoms. I'm going to list some of them, may not be all, but just some basic ones. Okay, it could be abdominal pain, abdominal discomfort, right? It can be it can be diarrhea. It can be fatigue. A lot of people are having fevers, high temperatures. It can be rigors. It can be chest pain, chest congestion. It can be runny nose, um, loss of taste and or smell. So loss of taste and or smell is a really big one. I mean, and there are others that go along with that, but I'm just naming, not all, but I'm just naming some of the basic symptoms, because some people say, hey, can't be it, maybe just a cold. And the reason why they're saying that is because they may have congestion, which is a COVID symptoms. They may have a runny nose. They may have wheezing, chest pain, okay? And don't forget body aches, right? So when you have, think about the common flu. So when you have the common flu, you can have body aches, you can have wheezing, you can have chest pain, chest tightness, if that cold sets in your lungs. But these, what we're talking about, are basic COVID symptoms. So those are basic. Some people have all those symptoms. Some people have none of those symptoms but test positive, which means if you test positive and you have no symptoms, you're just asymptomatic. You're still contagious. It's just that you're asymptomatic and that you yourself are not experiencing any symptoms. Then you have, let's say you test positive yourself, whether you're having symptoms or not, but you're positive, and you have people in your household. Those people in your household should be quarantining. You should be isolating yourselves from those individuals. A lot of people are not doing that. And Joanne, what I'm concerned about is this is March. Spring break is approaching. And some states, spring break may already be here. Many people are flying away to Miami, California, all these places when they should be staying home. I get everybody wants to have fun. I get everybody wants to have a good time. But again, believe me, there's also variants out there. So you got the variant from South Africa and UK as well as Brazil. So we have to be very, very, very mindful of that, because you go out to those places having a good time, casting all care to the wind, and then you're bringing something back with you. So we all want to get back to normal, whatever our new normal may be, but let's just think about it realistically. We really need to be helping one another. We do. But we're not focused on helping one another. And I think, Joanne, that is what is dividing us, because we're not looking out for one another. I shared with you all a few minutes ago that the mothers of my church, I will reach out to them to ask them, hey, what do you need? Are you okay with food? What do you need? Tell me what you need. I will go out there and buy it and pick it up for you, because I'd rather go than have them go. That's important. So think about the people in your life. Think about the seniors. Think about your neighbors, for example. There are a lot of people who don't have food. There are a lot of people who are homebound. They can't get out there to the grocery store. Think about those communities where there's a food desert. And a food desert is a community in which you may live where you don't have a grocery store. You may have a little mom and pop shop. Okay, that's it. But just think about that. So there's a food desert, right? So that means that little mom and pop shop may not have it's not a full-fledged grocery store, which means they're not going to have everything that you need. All right. They may have a lot of junk food items, but they're not going to have the basic nutritious things that you need. We need to be looking out for our neighbor. Just like we may have in some communities that neighborhood watch, we need to have a COVID neighbor watch where, hey, check in with your neighbor. If you're going to the grocery store, check with your neighbor next door down the street. Say, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. What do you need? There are easy ways of handling that. In my community, we have an email list. So if there's something jumping off, or there's something we want people to know or to stay in contact with one another, we have a list, phone tree list and an email list, where we can reach out to one another immediately. and everyone is responsive. Everyone pays close attention. They know to check their emails, voicemails, or whatever. If we have someone traveling somewhere, going out of town, they reach out to everyone on the list to say, hey, I'm going to be gone out of town XYZ. This is what's happening with me. We need to know what's happening with our neighbors. Not to be intrusive, but we really need to know because your neighbor next door to you could be someone that has COVID. Your neighbor next door to you could be a single mom who's really, really struggling, who's really, struggling, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, who may have children that's just driving her crazy. Think about all of these moms that cannot stay at home to take care of their kids, because they got to be at work. So, what some moms are doing is they're creating a pod. And by that, I mean a pod is where, let's say, you have to go to work, you can't stay home, but your child's school is doing virtual learning. So, a pod would be working with other moms that you know, like, and trust with your children who may have children of the same age as your children, where they're coming over to their home and they're doing their homework on the computer. Okay, and that's another thing when you think about the human cost of the pandemic. Many kids, Joanne, are having a hard time with virtual learning, working on the computer all day. I mean, get it. We do that all the time for work, right? But for young children, that's really hard and stressful for them. That's another human cost of the pandemic. Our children, you know, they're glued to a computer screen all day and they're struggling learning in that environment because the social structure, their friends are not nearby. They may be on a Zoom, but it's different. They don't understand what's happening or why. But anyway, with the pods, how that works, and I've seen it work, is if, let's say, Susie or whoever she may be, Brenda or whatever, Tori or whatever, has children your age, like, and trust one another. Your kids will go over to their home. They're at home with their kids, overseeing their work on the computer, monitoring everything. So you help one another out. Do the best you can with what you have to help one another out. And that's the only way we're all going to be able to get through this. I have friends who have not had the vaccine yet. What I've been doing to help them out is helping them find places that are offering the vaccine. And for those of you that don't know, if you're looking for a vaccine, there are trackers out there. Uh, Google your state vaccine tracker, and it will give you a link. You can click on that link, put in your zip code, and it will show you where you can go get a vaccine. Now, when I say go get a vaccine, it doesn't mean necessarily they're going to have any vaccines in stock, but you can sign up. So when you sign up, okay, and you put in your name, your email, and your contact information, it may even ask you if you have a pre-existing condition. All that determines what tier you fall in. Let's say, or phase, I should say. So let's say phase 1B, maybe someone 65 years of or older. It could also be someone with a chronic illness. So whatever phase you fall in, you go ahead and you register. Check the email regularly because when you come up, they will reach out to you to let you know, hey, now you can register for your appointment for the vaccine. I do know that I saw the other night that even Costco, I saw on their website that they will be offering the vaccines. Now, I can't say across the country which ones, but check out Costco too if you have a member. I think that if you go on their website, if they have any, they will let you know. I do know that CVS is Walgreens, Walmart, um, Kroger's, and many other places. You can register for the vaccine. In fact, I highly recommend that. Don't just limit yourself to registering for one site. Register on as many sites as you possibly can so that when your number comes up for you to receive the vaccine, you will be on so many different, registration sites that you stand a better chance of getting one instead of waiting. And there are a lot of people out there who feel that the vaccines are not safe. You have to govern yourself accordingly, decide what's best for you. Like I said, I had dose one. The only reason why I'm not getting dose two is because I had an anaphylactic reaction. But I have a lot of allergies, so it is what it is. But I have some immunity because I've already had the first dose. So as I mentioned, we got Pfizer, and we got Moderna, and we got J&J. So we know that J&J, Johnson and Johnson, is a one dose, whereas Pfizer, Moderna is two doses. So go ahead and register. This is not the time to be playing around with this virus, folks. It's very serious. We've seen many people who have died. When I ran a digital series last year around March, it was dealing with COVID and the African American community. I interviewed over 20 different African American healthcare professionals, and of those 21 that I interviewed, um, several of the nurses had COVID out there on the East Coast, and just listening to everything that they endured is not pretty. It's not something you want to deal with. So, if you don't want to get the vaccine, that's you. But think about this. COVID, we know people are dying. This virus is nothing to play with. The symptoms are something else. Think about the people you're leaving behind. And that's another human cost of the pandemic. Let's talk a little bit about life insurance. I've seen many people with GoFundMe pages up now. And the reason for that is because when their loved ones passed, Joanne, they didn't have any life insurance. No life insurance to bury anyone or to cremate anyone. So think about that. Think about the people you leave behind. I want to take it a step further with that. If you are someone who has young children, should something happen to you and you develop COVID, do you have a plan in place to take care of your children? Do you have a plan in place spelled out that should something happen to you, where are your children going to go? Who's going to care for them? Who's going to provide for them? Think about that. That's something that people don't think about, especially if they're minors. Where are they going to go? Think about that. It's very important. It's something I really want you all to think about, because if there are people that you do not want to have custody of your children in the event something should happen to you, please, please have a plan in place in terms of who's going to provide for them, because they're counting on you to take care of them. And if you're not going to take care of yourself, we all must have a plan in place. And you're right, Joanne, we all need plans for our kids. Definitely. I'm telling you, you got to have a plan in place for your children. You can get life insurance. I have a friend, Luciana Dotson. I'm going to have her join me on the air maybe tomorrow in the next couple of days. She sells life insurance. She can tell you all about that. I used to sell life and health insurance many, many years ago when I was a licensed insurance broker, which is why I'm mentioning it, that you must have a plan in place. Now, some people, Joanne, have life insurance, but this is the thing. They don't want a designated beneficiary, because some people say, you know what? When I die, I don't care. I'm not leaving it to anybody. Well, you know what happens when you don't have a plan in place, a contingency plan? That money goes to the state, and then the state is going to do with it whatever they want to do. Please have a plan in place. I don't care if you don't want to give it to your kids. I don't care if you don't want to give it to your family. Give it to the local pet organization, whatever cause you may care about. But the point is, please have a plan in place. And I'm really concerned about children, because haven't you all seen it on the news? A lot of people who have passed away with COVID, the children that was left behind that are homeless, have a plan in place. have life insurance. Please have life insurance. There's been so many GoFundMe accounts out here that sometimes there's just not enough money to go around to give to all these GoFundMe accounts. That's why you need life insurance. You can get a $5,000 life insurance policy, 10,000, 15, 20, or whatever. But the point is you must have something. Have something to leave your children. So should something happen to you, have a plan. Have a plan in place. Okay, if something happens to me, this is who's going to take care of my children. In addition to having that plan, have that conversation with whomever that person is for you to say, hey, in the event something happens to me, would you be willing to be there for my children? Would you be willing to raise them, to care for them? And remember, family is not always biological. Okay, a family can be someone that's there for you, got your back. They don't have to have your DNA. They don't have to be your relative, because all kin folks are not family, and all skin folks are not kin folks. So think about that. Family is wherever you find love, people who got your back and who are there for you. Take care of your family. And one way of taking care of your family is have some type of life insurance, so that if something happened to you, your children can survive. Whether it is, think about those young children, right? Something happened to you. Have a life insurance policy so that, they will be taken care of. Also, too, let's say I get this all the time from a lot of women, because I run a not-for-profit, folks, and I work with people with chronic pain, fibromyalgia. So what my organization does is we empower you beyond the journey of chronic pain. And I have met a lot of single moms who have had problems with their kid's dad, right? So let's say he don't want them to begin with, or let's just say he was abusive to you and your kids, and he beat you for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And he didn't respect the children, even though he's the dad. Is that whom you want to have custody of your children? Think about that. All right. I mean, that's a big pill to swallow, because if you get COVID and you have to go on a respirator or ventilator and you don't make it, think about your kids. Please, please have a plan. Have a plan, because you just never know. Life is so short. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. Life is so short. You can be up today and down today. But we all need to have a plan in place for our kids. And ladies as well as gentlemen, even if you don't have kids, guess what? You still need to have a plan in place for you. Let's say the spouse passes away, your significant other, your partner, or whomever. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Do you all have life insurance? Okay, you got life insurance. Who's the beneficiary? Do you know who the beneficiary is? You need to make certain that it's you, that you're going to be covered. I mean, these are things that, we don't really think about, that we need to think about. Having a plan. Do you have, let's say if you go into the hospital, do you want to be resuscitated? I mean, do you have a living will? Think about all those things. And again, that's the human cost of the pandemic, where we've got to have these real conversations with one another, as well as real conversations with ourselves. This is where the rubber burns the road, not meets the road, burns the road, and leaves all those skid marks. Have a plan in place, because I want to see everybody make it out, as many people as possible. But please stop relying on these GoFundMe's. Get some life insurance. If you have a 401k plan or whatever, now it's not the time to be screwing up our money, throwing our money away. If anything, we've got to be saving our money, because you never know. So thank you all for checking me out today on HAPS TV. This is my first broadcast on HAPS TV. I used to do a lot of scoping on Periscope. But my good friend here, Joanne Pham, told me a lot about HAPS, and so I'm checking it out. I'm liking it, and I plan to be doing a scope at least 3 times a week right here, talking about different topics. And so, um, thank you all for checking me out today. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's topic, talking about the human cause of the pandemic. And I will be back tomorrow around 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we're going to continue our discussion. And I'm going to see if I can get my good friend Luciana Dotson on here talking about life insurance, because I want her to come on to share with you all just about how affordable it can be. And yes, even if you have a pre-existing condition, you can still get life insurance. Now, of course, the younger you are, of course, the cheaper, the lower, I shouldn't say the cheaper it is. The younger you are, definitely the price is more affordable. But when you think about COVID, okay, many people have also a pre-existing condition. It can be diabetes, it can be um, hypertension, it can be heart disease, it can be obesity, it can be so many different things. That's why I'm saying I want everyone to be covered, to have a game plan. You know, my daddy used to always say, have a plan A, have a plan B, C, D, and go on. You know, my father used to always tell me, Nisi, always have a backup plan. And I want everyone to have a backup plan. I want everyone to be prepared, because you know what? You never know. I think about those people who have lost their jobs. And what I say to you, if you're someone who is watching me tonight on here talking about the human cost of the pandemic, and you have lost your job, then what I want you to do is to think about your skill sets, your gifts, your talents. Look at starting your own job, okay? Look at becoming an entrepreneur to have money for your household. What I had recently done was I went out, Joanne, and I bought one of those Cricut machines. I brought a Cricut Air Explorer, and I'm going to be making crafts and different things. You know, a great way to potentially supplement my income. In other words, do what you need to do to survive. Do whatever you need to do legally to put food on the table for you and your household. A lot of women, as well as men, are so creative, whether it is marketing, you know, creating crafts, all kinds of things. I mean, there are so many skills that people have. Start using them, because there's a market for it. Start using what you've got to make it, because, you know, jobs are here, there, and everywhere. But Joanne, I am seeing that with a lot of these jobs, sometimes with employers, what they're doing is the amount of monies that they're offering, they don't want to pay much. And people say, well, just take any job. Yeah, I get what you're saying about take any job, but people need to be able to take the right job for them. Because the one thing you don't want is to get one of those jobs where it affects your health so greatly that you don't know if you're going to come in, because there are some toxic people out there and some toxic jobs out there. So what I'm saying for those of you who are listening to me tonight, think about your skills, your talents. Think about your expertise. Use what you've got, okay, to move forward to your next destination. So be blessed, and thank you all for checking me out tonight. Good night until we meet again.